Hi Sarthak, welcome to the podcast, man.
Hi Divyansh, glad to be here.
I'm really excited to have you here because we connected on the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program. So we've had a couple of community meetups as well over there, and it's interesting to see that folks who are even entrepreneurs or product managers and even professionals coming out and creating content like you, and you have a lot of experience when it comes to entrepreneurship, right? You have been to Y-Combinator as well, and you have some product management experience. So that's amazing. And on that note, I would like to hand it over to you to just give a brief intro about you, and then we can take it forward from there.
Sure. I think I'm happy that I come across fellow creators such as yourself and get to learn. I am Sarthak. I started a company called Invoid in 2018, and I even passed out of college in 2018. So I passed out and created a company within a few months. While I was out of college, I was working with Ixigo as a software developer. So post that, I created
Okay.
Invoid, where we were automating KYC for banks, fintechs, wealth tech companies, crypto companies, matrimonial companies, shared economy players, gaming companies, and so on. So
Yeah.
we would essentially use artificial intelligence to onboard customers within a couple of seconds to a couple of minutes, which
Okay.
otherwise brands would have taken at least 2 days, plus human intervention.
Oh.
So your data goes through someone actually seeing your data, verifying it, and then taking time. And then there are chances that they might miss some details. So we would aggregate data sources, aggregate different AI models, have our own in-house AI models, and make sure that all of it is done and programmatically your customer is onboarded, right? So there's no human intervention.
Okay.
Because particularly everything that you get today is remotely, right? I mean, you don't need to physically visit anywhere for anything at all, right? Be it
Hmm.
groceries also now, right? You can have apples and oranges at your home without
Yeah.
even looking at them physically, going out and buying. So at that point of time, we realized that services which by nature in natively should be are digital actually. Let's say banking is already digital, but then why does someone have to come to your home, or why does someone have
Hmm.
to you have to go to a bank branch to get things done when you never visit the branch for any of the services in life? So that's how onboarding remotely is and became a thing in India. It's very common.
Yeah.
The government is very supportive. And now in 2021, we took an exit from it. It got acquired by a company. And now, yeah, taken a complete exit and looking at content creation full time plus helping up in tech and Gurgaon.
Interesting, interesting. So you mentioned about AI models, right? That you guys worked on those AI models. Is it that you worked on them from scratch, or did you get those models from somewhere? What was it like?
So, interesting question because AI in general is available widely now. I mean, any AI model is widely available. You can go on GitHub, you can go on at least just Google it and you will find certain models. But the point is that they're not localized in nature. So a model which works in the US, an AI model which works in the US might not work in India.
Oh,
Also, if you have a ready-made model which has data fed in from the US side of things, it might not work in India. So you need
okay.
to make sure that your model is nuanced. So at times, we did use commercially available AI models, such as Amazon's models or Microsoft's models, which are pay as you go kind of service where every call that you make to them for a particular AI model to be processing some images, you'd pay them. So
Hmm.
apart from that, we did create our own AI models and we built them from scratch with the
Oh,
data. So we had a mixed bag, but when we have our in-house model, the point is that you can sell it, and the profit margin is way higher because it's
yeah.
all yours, and you do not have any cost to pay apart from the server cost.
Hmm. So when you say that, you basically mean you need to train the AI model yourself. Is it correct?
Yeah,
Okay, got it, got it. And you said that you passed out of college in 2018. So is that the engineering college you passed out from, or is it the
yeah.
postgraduate? Okay,
No, I did my engineering BTech in computer science from Guru Gobind Singh University, which is in Delhi itself.
got
So
it.
yeah.
So tell me one thing, man. So you're a kind of a techie and you've been into the tech field for a while, computer science and AI models and stuff. How did you dive into content creation? So that is a question because we met during the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program. We'll talk about the program a bit over here because people won't know the context about what we're talking about. But before even going there, what was the reason behind creating content, or you just accidentally stumbled upon it? What was your journey in terms of content creation?
I think content creation, or I mean, now it's a very big term. You create content, but earlier it was just writing on LinkedIn or writing anywhere else, writing on Quora. So I think I've been doing that since I was in first or second year of college. Um, I used to write on Quora majorly because the whole point has been that I have gone through experiences, some weird, some difficult, some great experiences, and there are a lot of other people who are also going through the same and might not be finding people talking about it enough, right? So I started from there where I used to write on Quora, where there were a lot of people confused about different colleges, engineering colleges,
Yeah.
which engineering college to go, what are some. So I was an active writer there. I think till now I have like 250, I mean, 250,000 views on my
Wow,
answers on Quora.
that's
And
amazing, man.
I used to pop up in a lot of feed earlier, and a lot of people used to message me on Facebook, LinkedIn for college counseling, which I didn't know. I had applied to a lot of colleges, and I did go through some. I had attended a couple of them and dropped out of them, and then finally decided to
Yeah.
to my final college where I graduated from. So Quora was one. Then I realized that power of writing. I mean, it had nothing to do with the tech background or anything. It was just the experiences. And then I realized, LinkedIn is a place where a lot of professional action is happening. And,
Yeah.
at times you're doing all the fun stuff on Instagram or Facebook, but at the same time, you need to make sure that you get internships, you get enough opportunities in life
Yeah.
because engineering is anyway competitive, right? I mean,
Hmm.
there are lots of people, everybody's doing the same thing. How do you differentiate yourself? How do you come out and reach out to opportunities yourself if
Hmm.
opportunities aren't coming? Because I come from a tier two slash tier three college,
Hmm.
and opportunities don't walk to you. When you are in such
That's true.
colleges, you have to go towards the opportunity. So I think LinkedIn was mostly, I found a place where there were a lot of opportunities. So I started not writing particularly, but at least contacting people and talking to them and getting across opportunities. And then slowly and slowly, I started writing out about what I was going through.
Hmm.
And then, in college, of course, placements and all of those things happened. Then went for a job. By the way, the first job that I got, the internship and then a PPO on in Ixigo, it was also through LinkedIn. So I'm a
Oh,
LinkedIn fan altogether because I got my
yeah.
internship through it. Then it went on to building a company and sometimes getting investor leads also. So
Correct.
the journey starts from there and translates from jobs to then
Hmm.
entrepreneurship, then plain content writing.
Interesting. In fact, that's why you probably stumbled upon the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program, which is essentially a one of a kind, program launched by LinkedIn a few months ago. And I think they had a huge application for that accelerator program. It was, I think, I had never attended any program before. I think you were a part of some accelerator before this, even the YCOM. But when I applied for it, I had not expected that they would select me, or based on what I was pitching. So it was a lengthy application. You had to write about your creative concept and even create a video for that. And then probably they would select 200 creators in India out of like 10,000 applications. And then we had to create at least 4 posts a week based on the creative concept we pitched to them. And then we were given a financial grant of around $1,500 as well. So I think it's still coming up. So that was an interesting bit. And I think it was a great push by a platform like LinkedIn to create, catch hold of these creators who are even beginners in their own right, who are writing actively, or some were not writing and they were beginning their journey of content creation. And probably I think LinkedIn is still maturing as a content creation platform. That's why they're still testing it out with creators and even their new features which they're launching. So that is a LinkedIn program in short, right? So what did you pitch as part of the program? So give me a short brief about what was your pitch.
I think for me, it was that while I started up very young, I mean, you don't see a lot of people talking on LinkedIn, especially founders, they aren't writing a lot on LinkedIn. Plus, entrepreneurship is nothing that you can, obviously read and, you know, navigate through.
Yeah.
But at least some mistakes that I did in my entrepreneurship journey, then as a young professional sitting in an office, or then, trying to manage a team at 22, 23 when I don't think I was capable of being a leader, but you have to stand up to
Yeah.
certain positions. So I think I decided that I want to share all of these with people, and it's not as fancy as it looks like from the
Yeah.
outside. So I wanted to share my experiences in the founder journey as a young professional, as somebody who has worked with unicorns and listed companies. How do you deal with them as your client,
Yeah.
and how do you sell to them? I think that plus, I hold a key interest in finance content creation as well. So I think the
Oh,
third topic that I wanted to talk about
okay.
was in the LinkedIn application that I wrote was finance. Even in the program, I did make a couple of finance posts,
But
which
why
by the way were the
finance?
most.
Why finance?
I think I realized when you come from a non-finance background, you stumble upon finance for the first time. Plus, you realize that paisa to aap bana loge, right? You are making money
Yeah.
through a job or through anything, but how do you manage that money,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And if you don't manage it, even in your company or as an individual, you're going to regret all the hard work that you're doing, right? So that's a
Hmm.
couple of realizations later. I realized that finance isn't talked about enough.
Hmm.
Plus, now it's widely there, and a lot of people make great finance content. So I realized that I should also talk about it, because now engineers are mostly aware about it, but I know at a certain level a lot of people ignore finance.
Yeah.
They feel that it's not something that's for them. But if I had to think about it, if I had to, as a CTO, as a founder, as a pure software engineer, if I had to think about it, and if I had to read about it, not to mess up my own finances, I think it's important for everyone. So that is why.
Interesting, because you mentioned about the journey an entrepreneur goes through plus the finance side of things. What I've realized it as being part of LinkedIn for say a year, I've been active for a year, is that people talk a lot about personal branding on LinkedIn. They talk about LinkedIn itself and how it's gonna benefit them if they create content and personal branding, and a lot of people do it. What's interesting is people are coming out and talking about different things apart from personal branding, right? Just as you mentioned, the finance is there. People talk about other aspects, right? They talk about spirituality. Some talk about growth in terms of other fields. So I think LinkedIn is maturing, and there are a lot of people talking about personal branding, and getting that path is taking that path is easy, because once you get reach those followers, you can actually become a personal branding expert, which a lot of the folks in our cohorts are, right? In the Accelerator
Yeah.
program, we found a lot of folks over there. That was interesting, and I had this question in mind. How was the content creation experience on LinkedIn? Because it was a 10-week long program. We had a rigorous, schedule of 4 posts a week. That's minimum, right? We could create more. So how was that experience for you?
Honestly, it was exhausting. Uh, I mean, I when I say I've been trying to do it since a couple of years, I think it took me an accelerator program to finally know what actually it is, writing content very religiously, and then writing it for growth, right, and not
Hmm.
just for engagement. That's what we were told by Nas as well, that you that's challenging. I mean,
Yeah.
but earlier I was just writing content whatever I felt and
Yeah.
whatever raw raw mistakes and everything.
Yeah.
But then the process, I realized that in the program I realized that it's actually something that you have to religiously follow as a process, as a routine, and then follow up thing. So I think it's changed my perspective altogether, and not just writing about everything and anything, but just trying to understand what works for you and what does not. I think that was the most important aspect.
Hmm. I think one of the key takeaways, as you mentioned, it was a rigorous program, was that content planning is necessary, and content creation is a full time job, as a lot of people say it nowadays, because it takes a lot of time. Your mental effort is there in terms of what should I post next, and for the week or
Yeah.
for the month as well, right? And that was one of the key takeaways. Content planning is necessary, and at some point of time, even if you are a non-content creator and you are starting to create content, you will burn out, right? That happens, right? Because it's a creative task, and
Yeah.
and it does happen, right? So that's interesting from you to know. And why do you think content creation in today's world, right, in today's day and age, why is it important, right? Especially on platforms like LinkedIn or YouTube. Why do you think it's important?
Great question. I think you see so many content creators and platforms promoting more and more people to become content creators. What's the need of it, right? Why do you even need to be a content creator or creator altogether?
Yeah.
I think if you are not, okay, let's talk about what are you missing if you're not a content creator? Okay,
Hmm.
people would never notice you, and when other people are getting noticed and you are making no effort to get noticed, then obviously you're losing out on opportunities. And going ahead, this is going to be very competitive as a landscape, even in Indian economy. Anyway, we are so many people, but the competition is going to rise. So you need to write content to make sure that you are noticed. And second thing is that the kind of feedback that you get when you write content is very important for you. The ability to think, the ability to sell, I mean, any ability that you have gets very much affected when you have a feedback loop, right?
Yeah.
So let's say I mean, I encourage a lot of people, especially founders around me, or even professionals, that you need to write in public and tell everyone what you're working on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We have so many assumptions, we have so many thoughts to ourselves that we never get to know what's there outside, right? And
Hmm.
people never get to know. And once you go out and build in public, you not only attract feedback, but you also attract opportunities, in the sense that maybe somebody who's as interested as you might join you as a co-founder, right? I meet a lot of people who have a problem that I know this idea, I have this idea, but I'm not finding someone who will have the
Yeah.
same idea, who wants to
Yeah.
work with me. How do you expect someone to just walk into your life and
Yeah.
start working with you, until unless you don't go out there and tell everyone that I'm a crazy person and I want to create this? Is there anyone else who's crazy enough? Or if
Yeah.
you think I'm crazy, very crazy, then tell me what wrong am I doing, right?
That's true.
So you want that kind of feedback and you want those kind of opportunities. So for
Hmm.
me, writing was one way to get a lot of customers. I mean, in Void, I think the most of the investor leads that we get, and the most of the customers that we've gotten is through content writing and writing about let's say Invoid did a case study with, you can Google about it, anybody who's listening. Invoid did a case study with AWS
Okay.
about how we have used and leveraged AWS services to create a banking product within 3 weeks, right? So once I post about that on LinkedIn, a lot of people understand the credibility, right? Because anyway, their feed is anyway polluted with a lot of things that
Yeah.
it's noisy, right? So you
It's
want to make sure
noisy.
that it's credible thing to
Hmm.
believe. And yeah, I think that's why content creation is necessary now, not only just as founder, right? As a student. Okay, so the first few interns that I added to my team, who I really wanted to work with, weren't through internshala or weren't through
Hmm.
personal connects. They were all people who I approached on LinkedIn because they were writing out what they were building, right? So I
Oh,
remember one
nice.
person who had created an AI model, something that I had been thinking about for weeks, that is anybody working on this particular aspect of computer vision? And they wrote a post about it, and I was so intrigued. I followed up with them for 10 weeks. They were like, my
Wow.
college is getting over, or I'm in this internship particularly, and I want to join you guys, but I not today, I want to join you
Yeah.
guys months later. I did keep up with them. So that's where it leads to. And they were very productive when they came to our team, and it was an
Hmm.
amazing opportunity for them also. So yeah, those are some opportunities that you'd miss if you're not a content creator today.
That's very interesting because I've recently heard of a term called proof of work, right? We talk about
Hmm.
resumes, right? What we have done in the past and all that, but what have you actually done, and can you talk about it, right? That's where content creation comes in. It acts like a proof of work, especially on LinkedIn. And then you talked about the fact that you need to create differentiated content because there's a lot of content out there, and the barrier to entry when it comes to content creation is very low. So, there's one perspective that I have when it comes to differentiated content is create for yourself, as in create content which you enjoy to read or what you enjoy to watch. And then probably you can find your audience as well, because that's what happened with me like 4 years ago when I started with YouTube. So I started my journey with YouTube, and video was
Yeah.
the predominant thing in my life because I just wanted to come in front of the camera and do something, just like we are doing a podcast over here. And that gradually translated into a long content creation journey, learnings, failures, lots of failures, because it's not easy to succeed in content creation, because there are tons of people doing some sort of content creation on YouTube, because YouTube is matured, but LinkedIn is kind of growing. And yeah, as you mentioned, you found your interns over there. And I think since you mentioned interns, right, people who are still in college, right, what is the advice you would give to somebody who is a student, who knows things, who's still learning but wants to experiment or is experimenting or building? What is your advice for that person to get started on LinkedIn? Because people may be shy about posting or writing. They may think that, oh, ye mere bare mein kya sochega and all that stuff. So what is your advice for those folks?
I think it's very much related to the proof of work that you were talking about, right? I mean, it's a very uh, common topic in the world of decentralized networks that,
Yeah.
a proof of work is something which is very important. But now also, if you are an intern, I mean, even if you're not looking for an internship, even if you're not, I mean, if you, even if you're a student and you're not looking for an internship, but you still should make a digital resume out of yourself, because these things are history, right? I mean, you can be looking for an internship 2 years later, but what if you've been constantly being a thought leader, or, I mean, even if not a thought leader, but at least someone who's been writing about that topic where you're looking to work for now, that somebody who's potentially looking to work with you can go through and read, right? So
Yeah.
you don't want to miss out on an opportunity where for 1 year you would have been writing something constantly and somebody understands your passion towards it, right? So
Yeah.
I have a couple of people in my field who've just started development, right?
Hmm.
And they are posting about how they've written their first piece of code.
Oh,
And
nice.
even, I mean, I come from a software background, and if anybody tells me about their first experience of writing their first piece of code, it's always great to interact with them, because it's
Hmm.
all it's like a starting of a journey which can translate into I don't know where, right? You know what technology can do. If you know how to write code, you can probably send people to Mars, right?
Yeah.
So so that the first point of journey, I think it's amazing to interact with them. Then they constantly write about, okay, this was the second piece of code that I wrote,
Yeah.
and I learned about these things. I mean, it's very naive of them to write, and they're doing it. And as a person who's reading it, I felt amazing because I could see the journey. And not only was I happy about their journey, but I could remember my own journey looking at their
Yeah.
content.
Yeah.
It was relatable, or it was something that, resonated. So I think you don't have to be ashamed or hesitant about writing, or because
Hmm.
there would be someone who would be interested. And it's not like people are going to show a lot of hate when you write on social media. They're
That's true.
always collaborative that way. I mean, I haven't touch wood, I haven't come across a lot of haters who've come and written anything on my post. A couple of times, yeah, but then that's feedback for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think you shouldn't be hesitant about it.
Very interesting. And also, I would like to add that, when you start creating content on any platform, be it LinkedIn or YouTube or any other, say Twitter, it takes time to grow, because personally, I've experienced like 2 years of there was zero growth. Absolutely nothing happened on the channel. And then one day, post COVID, I just made a plan to create some videos around, home workouts, and it just shot up like anything. So, virality is something which people talk about. अरे मेरा video viral नहीं हुआ या मेरा content viral नहीं हुआ. It's not how it really works. As people are talking about, it's a matter of luck as well, and the surface area you create for the luck to fall upon. Right, the more you create, the more
Yeah.
the chances of your content getting viral and you getting good followers and stuff like that and good opportunities. So I think for somebody who's getting started, just start creating content, whatever you like. You talked about text-based content, written content. If you're uncomfortable with written, start with video or any other form. Like you can create carousels on LinkedIn because it has so many forms of content. So it's just about getting started and then improving along the way. That's how content creation generally works. I was pathetic when I started with my YouTube videos. I was asking the question to myself, मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ? Like what am I doing to do? this is not what I wanted to do. And then gradually it started, fitting it into my life and schedule. Now, what also happened was that after a point, you start getting consumed by content creation, because content creation is a rigorous journey. So,
Yeah.
from your perspective, man, what are the bad things or the negative things about content creation?
Um, the accountability it brings.
Oh
Okay, I mean
yeah.
it's great to have accountability towards something, but then you are stressed about it. Because if
Hmm.
you don't churn out great content, you not only are, disappointing people who read your content, but you're also disappointed with yourself. But sometimes you cannot help it, right? There are a lot of
Hmm.
blocks. It's not just creative block, but sometimes have you just can't do it. So I think
Hmm.
then you stress about it.
Hmm.
I think I'm still struggling with it. I constantly question myself so much when I'm writing something. I mean, I know 30 seconds ago I was talking about that you shouldn't be hesitant. But then
Yeah.
at one point, when you're constantly doing it and there is an engagement and there's ups and downs, you have to realize that other people around you in content creation are growing, and then the competition, the feeling of competition seeps in. I think that's the negative, not negative, but
Yeah.
something that troubles you when you're creating content. What do you think?
I think I have two perspectives here. Especially first, say I have two platforms like YouTube. I create on YouTube and LinkedIn. So I started creating on YouTube because there was nobody from my circle who was watching me. That was the reason why I started. I thought, okay, I'll create in public, but nobody from my circle is going to watch my content. I knew that. And that is the reason why I started, because I'm an introvert. I don't like to, come out in public in front of 1,000 people and just start talking. It takes time. So that's the reason why I started on YouTube. But on LinkedIn, there are a lot of folks, and their friends, their colleagues, and people like you who are watching me create content. There is a lot of accountability on LinkedIn, right? Because you can't just create anything and just get away with it, right? And people don't say bad things to you on LinkedIn. That's the beauty of LinkedIn. They don't just come and abuse you and say wrong stuff about you. That happens on YouTube a lot and Twitter a lot, but not on LinkedIn. So they may message you in a way that, okay, dude, I think this content is not working well for me as a person. I don't really resonate with it. That happens. That happened with me once and twice. So I was like, okay, no problem. I'll do something about it later. But that happens a lot on LinkedIn, and that's I think that's because even LinkedIn is maturing as a platform, right? People will come with counter opinions about things and opinions about things, and plus minus negative things about certain terms and concepts which are taking place. Web3 is like going down right now, and people may think, oh, what's happening in Web3? There's nothing happening in Web3. So that happens a lot, and I think it will take time for, even as a person, you and me will take time to adjust to what's happening within LinkedIn as well. The algorithm will change, things will change, right? The
Yeah.
perception of the platform may change with time, because it's still kind of new for content creators as well, right? And yeah, that's the interesting bit. And tell me one thing, man. Who is the content creator you like to follow or consume content of? Like, who is that person? Would like love to know that.
I think for me, one name that always comes to my mind when somebody asks me about their favorite creator is Ankur Wariku. I mean, he's like one of the most followed people on LinkedIn, and there's a reason to it, right?
Hmm.
One, he's able to write content about a lot of things, and it doesn't look misplaced, right? Everything, I don't know, just fits in. Like he talks
Yeah.
about finance, but he doesn't talk about it too much. He talks about
Hmm.
mistakes in your 20s, but he doesn't go there all the
Yeah.
way there and just talk about it. He keeps it very balanced.
Yeah.
And plus the consistency, of course, he talks about his consistency, but you can actually see it happening, right?
Yeah. That's
There
true.
is no one in my circle who hasn't come across his content.
That's true.
Be it ads, but ads is something which, is something else. And apart from
Yeah.
that, also, his content is there. Be it on YouTube, you must have come across his content.
Yeah.
Be it on
Absolutely.
LinkedIn, you must have come across his content. Twitter, not so much, but I think on Instagram, YouTube, everywhere he's there. And I think
Hmm.
second person who I really like, I mean, whose content I really like, he's not like a content creator per se, but whenever he does write it, it's amazing. It just resonates too much with me. It's Kunal Shah. He
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
write too much, but he writes it on Twitter, which is like
Yeah.
160 characters.
Next
Um,
level.
as far as I remember. But in 160 characters, what he writes is something that sometimes keeps me thinking for minutes and hours. So I think the second content creator, not per se content creator, but someone who creates
Hmm.
uh, pieces of content on
Interesting.
Twitter. Yeah.
Very interesting, man. Because I recently discovered, like a couple of years ago, I started discovering Kunal Shah because he's from my college, MBA. So he dropped out from
Acha.
MBA. He dropped out from MBA. That's an interesting bit to build free charge. And he's such an intellectual guy, man. He whenever he comes on any podcast, he talks about things we had never heard about, never knew about, psychology and stuff like that, which one
Yeah.
should know. Like you should know how to code and you should know how to market, but even before that, you should know psychology and persuasion, game theory, stuff like that, which are basics. And from my perspective, there's another guy. It's like the American version, American Indian version of Kunal Shah. It's Naval Ravikant, and he
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
create as much content. He doesn't create as much content. He's the founder of Angel List, and he talks about intellectual stuff, right? How to get rich without getting lucky. That was a tweet he did, and it went viral. That kind of stuff is crazy. I bought his book, and whatever he talks about is makes so much sense, man. Because people talk about things like, oh, you should be wealthy and stuff, and then he mentioned that, okay, there's no legacy. There's going to be no
Yeah.
legacy once you die. Like there's going to be no money when you die, right? So just do whatever you love and do it with passion and stuff like that. So that's interesting things he mentioned. And then the second guy, I don't call him a content creator, but I used to follow Beer Biceps a lot because that's the reason why I
Yeah.
started Ranveer, and I related to him a lot. I still get inspired by him. And then there's Joe Rogan, I'm discovering because of the
Yeah.
small snippets he puts across from his podcast. Very insightful. And so there's another one called Impact Theory. It comes on YouTube, and that guy is like just like Joe Rogan, only creates similar content, but
Okay.
it's insightful. So yeah, I shifted from just entertainment to a little bit of infotainment kind of folks who even teach. And on LinkedIn, I do enjoy following a lot of creators like you in our cohort as well, who create good content and very engaging content. So yeah, we met some in the Delhi meet as well, who are doing some great
Yeah.
stuff out there when it comes to personal branding and creating content. So yeah, I think even in a cohort, we're gonna find some great influencers in the coming days. Hopefully, you become one as well.
Yeah.
Tell me one thing, bro. Do you also create on other platforms?
I do create on Instagram, but that's like I'm starting out a finance page because the urge to talk about finance. It's not just me. Anybody who understands finance or wants to understand finance or have understood a bit of finance and wants to explore it can easily talk about finance. It's such an engaging topic to attract people. You just tell them that you can make money out of money, and everybody's like,
Yeah,
how
yeah,
much money can I make? And then when these booms like 2021, 2020 come to your life, I mean, come in front of you during your lifetime, you're
hmm,
like, I've missed an opportunity, and now I should just go ahead and start putting in money, and
correct.
ho jayega ekka double. That's how things work. But at the same time, you need people to tell you their mistakes, their set of
Yeah,
mistakes, and so I think I talk about because content creation is something that I'm already doing on LinkedIn. I thought why not for a particular category I can
yeah,
talk about it on Instagram because the audience there very well receives content
hmm,
like finance
hmm.
and a couple of other things. So I think apart from that, I don't write content anywhere else.
That's okay. That's great to know because I've been on YouTube for a while. I
Yeah.
don't enjoy Instagram because I have never been into Instagram as much. I don't consume content on Instagram as much. I've tried hard to create content for Instagram, but I don't know why. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I think for you, since you have such domain expertise, Instagram is great because I think Reels now is like exploding on Instagram. You can create content, just goes berserk on Instagram. And tell me one thing, bro. So you talked about finance. You also work at a fintech company, right? You are a
Yeah.
product manager over there. You gain knowledge from the workspace you work at, and apart from your experience, do you also study about finance, and how do you level up in terms of finance and creating finance content?
Understood. So well, and by the way, I'm a vice president there
Oh
for
man,
product technology.
crazy.
But anyway, I mean, so again, yeah. So first of all, on day job, I work there and I get an understanding. And, there are challenges around the regulations and everything else that's coming up in India. So I think that is one place. Apart from that, my circle that I usually sit with, they are people who study about finance a lot in general, and a couple of nuances from there, right? And then, you know, I read about finance, but because I have taken like almost all paid subscriptions available of these amazing media houses on the internet, like the Morning Context, Cap Table,
Okay.
ET Prime, all of
Yeah.
them. I think I come across content, and then it's just about how that affects me,
Yeah.
and then I plan to talk about it going ahead.
Interesting, because even having a little bit of experience in terms of personally doing stuff is kind of creates content for you, because I create content around fitness, which is like running and cycling and stuff like that, because I do it myself. I do a lot of running, and I have made this pact with myself that I'll run at least 2 kilometers every day, because I just kind of totally went away from running for a bit. So yeah, I love that. That's why I create content around it, and that makes sense also. Create what you love to on topics.
Yeah.
And just moving away from content creation a bit, I just want to understand more about what you did with Invoid, your startup, which you exited, right? And you worked on, and then you also joined Y-Combinator, right? So I want to talk about Y-Combinator here a bit, and just shed some light for people like me and people who don't know about YC and what happens over there, right? So tell me your story about Y-Combinator, man. How did you get there, and what was it all about?
Okay, so Y Combinator is, world's the most premium accelerator for a startup. It's like, for Indians, if you heard me anywhere else, about the most used term is it's IIT for startups, right? Because
Ah,
it, it you you know what it means then.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
IIT for startups at a global scale, or like a MIT for startup. I mean, a lot of people do drop out from Stanford, Harvard, if they've gotten into Y Combinator for their startup, right? Because it's like, um I mean, it's because it's the most premium. People all around the world know about it, right? So if you go to an investor and tell them, I mean, obviously you don't have to go to them,
Yeah.
because they get to know. They try to. So investors are crazy about Y Combinator startups, so they try to get the list of Y Combinator startups before any other investor can get,
That's
because they want to
crazy.
invest in
That's
those in those companies. So it's that, right? So Y Combinator is the most premium accelerator. Plus, it also invests in your startup. So it's, I think, the first or the second most prestigious fund of the world, competing with like of Sequoia.
Hmm.
So yeah, and that is something that we did. We didn't do it in the first attempt. We got rejected twice,
Oh, is
and
it?
the third attempt, yeah.
Okay.
So I know someone in our batch who tried for the ninth time and got in. So that's the
Wow.
kind of persistence people go through because of YC. So I think YC was something that was a great experience. And people who don't know the other companies who YC has invested, I think if you've been ordering through Zepto
Yeah.
recently, so Zepto is Y Combinator company. It's Razorpay, Grow, the investment platform, Misho, all
Misho.
of them accredit a lot of their success to Y Combinator,
Yeah.
because Y Combinator's secret sauce is that they take bets that no other person takes. Right. So Zepto, 10-minute grocery, nobody else was doing before Zepto
Yeah.
was doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of bet. Razorpay was doing something else, but they went into Y Combinator. They made a plan with the partners there and brought out such an amazing product. Grow, Misho, social commerce, nobody else was doing at that point of
Hmm.
time. Then YC came, Misho happened, and then now you know what Misho is. And then these are some Indian companies, right? When I talk about global companies, Airbnb.
Yeah.
I mean, the story of Airbnb, if anybody who's listening has read about it, they were made fun of when they started out, saying
Yeah.
that people could rent out their homes.
Homes.
And then
Yeah.
there was YC who believed in them, and you know what Airbnb is now.
It's
Before the
crazy.
crash, Coinbase, right? Coinbase is Y-Combinator funded company. Again, did Y-Combinator when it was 2011.
Yeah.
I don't know if people even knew what Bitcoin is back then. India, I'm sure, like a handful of people would have known
Yeah.
in India.
I
So
agree.
yeah, Dropbox and Zapier and um, Mixpanel and Firebase and
Yeah.
GitLab. All of these companies are IC funded.
Yeah. And tell me one thing, man. You said that they believed in those companies. They believed in the idea that it'll grow big. So, do the founders make them believe, the Ycom folks, that this will grow big, and they give some projections and stuff, or is it that they just give the idea and they also, put in their intelligence? Okay, this looks interesting. Let's invest. Sometimes the founders themselves, like you, may not have such a future perspective about growth. So does Ycom, put their own brains to it, that okay, this can grow big and stuff like that? Is it something, or is it completely on your own, that you have to pitch something crazy and you can then only get into Ycom?
So process of YC is there's an application form which you have to fill, and then there is a 1 minute video that you have to record, and then after that they take a 10-minute interview of you. And imagine, right? This is like, okay, let's say application writing and reading might take like an hour or 2 or 3. Though it takes 2 days for people like me to write, because it has questions which make you think about the basic. Why are you building what you're building? And why do you think it would work? And why do you think you are the one who's going to do, who's better to do, who's the most appropriate person on the planet to do it, right? When somebody asks you these kind of questions, you're like, wow, okay, the problem is something else, but why am I the right person to solve that problem?
Yeah.
Why do you think I? So one of their question in the application form is, tell us something that you've hacked before without using sophisticated software. So
Oh.
you have to tell that you've done something not unethical, but something that you've found a loophole in, or some tweaking that you've done in your life which you benefited and other people benefited from, which is not a software product, right? So when
Okay.
you have to prove yourself that you're the right person to do this business and you are a person who's capable to commit for this particular passion, right? So that's the application process, and then there's a 10-minute interview. In 10-minute interview, there are people. So Michael Siebel is one of the interviewers, right? Michael Siebel is Twitch founder,
Twitch co-founder.
right? And then there are other people. Pebbles founder Eric is also there. Yeah. So the interview people, they are amazing people, and so they're able to gauge the kind of passion that you carry, right? So in a 10-minute interview and a 1 hour reading of the application, they're able to decide they want to invest in legendary companies like Airbnb and others. So, I mean, the people there are amazing. So even if they're not collaborative, they can see through you very easily. So you bring out the best of yourself and they're able to understand that. And once you are in the program, they are very focused on you building the product and taking from a scale from 0 to 1 and then getting your first seed investments and stuff like that. So I think they're very collaborative after that. But during the interview, they're very peculiar. They want to know everything.
So tell me, man, Michael Siebel and all these folks, do they actually come in on the interview and take the interview from you guys? Is it and does it happen for all the applications, the 10-minute interview, or is it like an elimination kind of a thing?
So the application round is the major round where they have sophisticated systems now. They've been doing this for like more than 15 years now, so they know how a legit application would look like, right? And how our criteria would fit in. So they have a system for that, and most of the people get rejected in the application round. And for the interview, they have a lot of amazing people, right? Amazing founders who are amazing, people from the valley who've been in this ecosystem for years, years altogether.
Yeah.
And so they take interview process after the application route. And it's not always Michael Siebel. I mean, obviously he heads YC now.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are people. I mean, even Kunal Shah for a particular period went for Y-Combinator as a partner.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And tell me, man, so usually you have to fly to the Silicon Valley for the program, is it? And
yeah, but we did it in the pandemic, so we were doing it remotely. So everything happened on Zoom.
But generally, you have to fly it for to the Silicon Valley for 3 months, and then you get
Yeah.
you meet folks over there in the area. So you get an office space, something like that, or is it you have to take your own space and stuff?
So YC happens as in there are a couple of lectures and couple of dinners that they host, and apart from that, there are office hours. So you book time with partners at Y-Combinator to help you solve some problems. So it's not
Hmm.
like they obviously they give you money, they fund you, and you need to stay at a place in the valley near Y Combinator office,
Got it.
and at the office at the Y Combinator building, the HQ, where the lectures and you can meet partners. So physically that happens, and virtually we book Zoom sessions with them.
Interesting. And I've also read on Quora, as you used to write on that. I read that they don't have a particular structure for the program, right? It's very unstructured. You have to build your own thing. You have to motivate yourself and get inspired and stuff like that. Is that true?
Not really. I think
Okay.
it's actually the opposite. I mean, they have a very structured thing
Oh,
how and how certain things can be done because they've been seeing companies, and they're not the company they're seeing for the first time. I mean, I'm sure they must have some experience in that domain, or they must have seen another company doing the same at a different era, right? So they've seen all of that, and they have enough nuance and experience to structure your company. But that being said, they also are not rigid that way.
yeah.
They sit with you for your own problems, for your understanding. And I have heard from my peers who had sessions with, let's say, Michael Siebel, and
Hmm.
Michael Siebel would say one line or like 30 seconds of something, and they'd just keep on thinking for it for weeks, right? Because he comes from experience. He's just articulated one sentence which has like 10 years of experience in it, the understanding, and
Yeah.
you're just coping up with what he said, right? For the next few weeks.
Crazy,
So,
crazy. Yeah.
and then they also help you pivot, right?
Okay.
To come, I mean, not help per se, but they can understand that certain things are not working. If there is a possibility of a pivot, then how does that happen? So they're very
Wow.
collaborative that way.
That's interesting. And tell me, man, what has been the most helpful thing that happened for you at YC? Like, I know you get investment, you get stuff, and you get some mentorship as well. But what really happened as part of your journey at YC, which is beneficial, has been beneficial for you as a person and as a, as you for your startup as well. So both ways.
Yeah, I think credibility. Uh, it's
Oh,
like
damn.
I mean, obviously, if you go to an IIT, apart from anything else that you're capable of doing, you also get a tag that you're an
Yeah.
IITian per se. That's the only analogy I can come across to IC. So, Y Combinator is like a tag. That's an amazing tag to carry.
Hmm.
And as a company and as an individual, both, you get the network and you
Yeah.
get such rich experience in the entrepreneurial world. So they have a platform called Bookface, which is exclusive to YC founders and YC partners. And there, it has been hosting forum and questions and answers from almost a decade now, right?
Yeah.
So people have been writing on it. Founders since that long have been writing, and the network available, the investor database, and all of those things. I think that's you cannot get that anywhere else.
Interesting, man. And I think you have exited your startup. I think you probably sold it or, so tell me, man, does it make you rich selling a company and stuff? What's the experience? And, first, answer this question first. Does it make you rich?
I wish. I mean, I hope it's. I mean, it's decent. Can't say that I'm rich. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, how was the experience of, selling a company? Like, probably, did you ever plan it in your life that you will create a startup and sell it off? And how was it for you?
It was mixed, right? I mean, when we had started, we did know that this was not something that we wished to do for the rest of our life.
Hmm.
Um, we knew that we wanted to build it, and obviously build it to be acquired or take an exit. And that exit could be an IPO also. I mean, obviously you need to build it for the rest of your
Yeah.
life if you want to IPO a company. But at the same time, we were naive. Sometimes being naive is fine. So we thought that we didn't want to build it forever. But that's not how it happens. You can't build a company just to sell it. We thought that we'd build it that way. But once you're in it, you build things to make sure that they last forever.
Yeah.
And you build it from a 10-year horizon and not just a 10 month. And 10 months is too less, but
Correct.
at least like for a 3-year horizon or 4-year horizon. So selling and acquisition happens. There are a couple of things that happen in one's life or in a startup's journey when people think consolidation is a great idea, or consolidation is something, or joining, getting acquired is something that is a great opportunity for the company and for the product and for the customers, because it's now like a running business, and you want to make sure that it stays forever, and you can also go on to newer opportunities or look at better things, or move out from it. Where the company should stay, the heart of the company should stay.
Interesting. And tell me, are you still associated with your startup in some way which you've exited, or is it like gone forever? Like,
No, it's gone.
gone.
So
Okay.
wanted to make sure that there's more time at hand, and
Yeah.
there's leverage, and there's no tie-ups from it. So I think
Hmm.
that is something that we optimized on.
And you are a VP now at Credence, right? So,
Yeah.
how is your life now? You were earlier a startup founder, hustling it out in your startup. Now you're VP at Credence. I'm sure you'll be hustling as much, but there
Yeah.
might be some core difference in terms of work now. What is it for you?
Um, I've never hated 9 to 5. I think I'm not. I'm a person who's never spoken bad about working or having
Hmm.
a job. I might have spoken, saying that entrepreneurship is tougher than 9 to 5. I mean,
It is.
I'd written a post on LinkedIn, I think a year ago or a year and a half ago, that people think that you would be your own boss when you start a company, but what you don't realize is you have more than one boss now. You have like
Yeah.
9, 10 boss, and they're your customers, there are investors, there's the
So much
government,
pressure.
which,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
there's
crazy.
pressure, some relatives that you want to prove. So all of them are like on top of you and looking at you, and you
And you
have to
have a
build
time
something.
bomb. You have a time bomb
Yeah,
ticking.
yeah.
So that's another one. And there are
So,
probably no weekends. I'm not sure, but yeah, I see that because I keep creating the content on weekends also. I see that there's
yeah,
no relief per se if you are building something until you reach what you really want, the place where you want to reach, and then your aspirations again become bigger. So that the loop keeps going. So there needs to be some point where you stop and you have to make your own stopping point, right? There
yeah.
can't be somebody else doing it for you. And tell me, man, I wanted to ask this question, but I think I've forgotten that question. It's okay. But still, okay, I got it back. That since you have done a startup and even exited, you have so much experience when it comes to starting up and entrepreneurship. Why not another startup? Or are you still planning
Yeah.
to do one more later?
Uh, the possibility is always there. I don't know, it's just become such a frequent question. Is any VC, any friends, or any founder friends that you've created in the past few years always think that you go ahead and you'll start another company like this? Like, I'm going to start.
Yeah.
But to be honest, um, I wouldn't, I would love to get into the founder journey again. But what I'm really looking for is high conviction towards a problem statement. um, you know of course, when you become founder, you've gone through that journey, or even when you're like someone who started something of your own or wanted to build something or have built, you see a lot of problems around you and you think they're solvable and you can go ahead and solve them. But then what you don't realize, when you've done the whole circle, you realize that some problems are not worth spending the
Solving.
rest of
Yeah.
your life for, or
Yeah.
solving for. So I'm looking for that high conviction of a problem statement where I can, where it doesn't where it doesn't come as something to solve. It's where it's fun to solve, right?
Yeah.
Where the motivation is there itself. So I'm looking for that high conviction problem statement to solve. And when it comes, who knows? I mean,
When you say
start
high
something.
conviction, it means that there's a high belief in the idea that yeah, it will work and stuff.
Yeah. Not only your personal belief, but from a market perspective also, right? You don't want to build a business It is not a $1 billion business. Okay, I mean, I'm not saying that you build a $1 billion business, but it should have a capability of becoming a $1 billion business, right? It should be a big enough problem to solve. It should be a big enough problem to make you wake up every day and there's something to look at. It's no
Hmm.
stagnancy. So, I mean, that's also the market's uh, the it should be a big enough market, and that's also some conviction that you're looking for.
And finally, man, tell me your advice for somebody who's starting up, like who has some idea and wants to start up. They have a team probably, but they haven't taken the plunge and all that stuff. What is your advice for those folks?
Um, I think if they are able to do something without taking a plunge, I think it's a great sign, because people think that they have to leave their jobs for starting up, but it's not true,
Yeah.
right? You can do it on weekends. You don't have to cheat on your work. You can
Hmm.
work and you still have a lot of time left. I mean, when I was starting up, I did not leave my job for 6 months, right? I was doing weekends. I was doing post my office hours for the startup. So just wait. I mean, there's no hurry to build something. If there is a hurry, it's not worth it, because when you even if you do it in a hurry, things will slow you down. Everything else, your customers or your potential things will slow you down. Then you do not have an option, right? So there is no hurry in building anything. Just take your time, but the urgency should be there to create it. Should not be complacency which sets in, like,
Yeah.
okay, aaj nahi to kal job to hai hi na, that's going
Hmm.
on. So that should not set in, but the urgency should be there. But there's no hurry to leave a job to take a plunge, right? And when the time is right, when you feel like you can sustain other people, forget about your sustenance. Anyway, you go to sustain on coffee or probably tea for the longest period of time, and with no money and with no salary. I remember working for no salary for months and years altogether.
Yeah.
So, but the point being that once you have enough resources to sustain the team or the other people in your team, right? So once you're able to do that, that's when you should take a plunge. When there are people ready to work with you, that'd be a great time to take a plunge. And taking a plunge in today's world is highly regarded, highly appreciated. But back when I was doing it in 2018, I mean, it's not long ago, but how the landscape has changed from 2018 to 22. When I was doing it, it wasn't appreciated, but the folks around me were really helpful. And while I was young, they all were very encouraged. I mean, they were encouraging me all throughout that, why not take this? You can do it. I've always thought about it. I still remember one of my seniors in my company. We did not have a lot of interaction, but once there was an offsite and we were sitting at some restaurant and we were talking about things, and somebody told him, Sarthak is leaving this job and going to start something. And they were discussing, and he said that every software engineer I've known has wanted to build something of their own, but they've not been able to. And just the time has passed by, and they've only thought about it. So if he's doing it right now, I mean, it's great. And that's when I realized, it's not that people don't want to start up, but there's no process to it, or
Yeah.
they've never gotten the opportunity. So just set up some base and then taking a plunge makes sense.
It's like an unknown world, like what will happen next at every stage. That's probably that what sets people back, like they don't want to do
Yeah.
it and stuff. But it's been an amazing conversation with you, man. I think you've shed some great light on some questions I had for a while, and probably I'm more enlightened now because of your answers. And uh, in general, it's been just amazing to talk about LinkedIn, to talk about Y-Combinator and entrepreneurship with you, man. And I'm lucky to have this conversation this long as well. And probably we'll have more conversations like these in the future as well, so that even the audience who's listening in is equally enlightened, and they're learning along the way, right?
That's
So
very
thank you,
kind
man.
of you, Divyansh. That's very kind of you. Thank you for having me. It was great having the conversation here.
Thank you, Sarthak, man. Thank you so much, man. See you.
Awesome.